Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It is a joy to be here to celebrate Shabbat with all of you tonight. Congregation Shalom is a place of great meaning and comfort. So it's wonderful to be able to be here together. And let's draw on that comfort as we sing Lechu Nara Nana, singing joyfully to God on page 12.
Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Adonai. Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Adonai. Naria, Naria, Letzo Yishenu Nekadma, Fana Betoda. Naria, Naria, Letzo Yishenu, Bizmirot Narialo, Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Adonai. Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Adonai. Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Adonai. Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Lechu Nara Nana, Adonai.
And we'll turn back to the reading on page 6. We'll read responsively. We enter this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves.
Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightest Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer.
And it is a pleasure to welcome up Elaine Keller and Margot Raz to light our Shabbat candles this evening. You bring light to our community, and we look forward to you lighting some light for us this Shabbat. We'll welcome you up for a reading on page 3 and 2. Elaine and Margot, if you'll come up, that will be.
Thanks, everyone, for braving the rain. Mm-hmm. It's nice to be here in the warmth.
As the Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As our brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Asher kitchanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Let's sing together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We will continue on page 16. We'll read together. Sing praise to Adonai with the lyre, and melodious song. With trumpets and the blast of the horn, raise a shout before Adonai, the ruler. Let the sea and all within it thunder, the world and its inhabitants. Let the rivers clap their hands, the mountains sing joyously together at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly, and its peoples with equity. Shalom Aleichem is a Shabbat melody about angels as messengers of peace. There's a teaching in Jewish tradition that two angels go with each person as they leave the synagogue and go to their homes. May the warmth of being together, both in person and online, singing Shabbat melodies and praying the words of our ancestors, carry us into a Shabbat filled with peace. Shalom Aleichem on page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
On page 27, entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. We'll continue with Chatzi Kadesh on page 26.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala, uvizman kari veimeru, amen, yeshmei Rabba mevarach, le'alam u'le'almei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudeshah Brichu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'yimeru Amen.
And we'll read responsively at the top of page 27. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of a withered leaf, on ripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair.
Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways.
We'll stand, we'll rise together for the Baruch Hu on page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
We will read together in the Hebrew on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach sha'arim, uvitvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umsader et hakochavim v'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi layla, uma'avdil ben yom uvein layla. Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. And we'll continue on page 33 at the bottom. We'll read responsively. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things
your Torah gives to us.
And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives.
What could be a truer token of your abiding love
than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form?
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
We'll continue with the Shema, the watchword of our faith.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam
may be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We'll continue responsively at the top of page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot.
That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness.
That there is no way to get from here to there, except by joining hands and marching together. On page 40, we lift our voices in song as our ancestors did on the shores of the sea.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot o sefere, nora tehilot o sefere, malechutecha ra'u vanecha bokei ayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam zeli ve'ameru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
For Hashkivenu this evening, I want to read you a poem by Alden Solovey called Prayer Before Sleep. God, watch over my sleep, grant me a night of rest and renewal, and spread your loving shelter over my family and friends and all who are dear to me. This night, I'm keenly aware of those in your special need of your care. Ancient One, ease my mind, soothe my heart, rejuvenate my body, restore my strength, revive my faith, so that when I open my eyes to the new day, I will see beauty in your creation and marvel in all your works. Then I will rise in service to Torah and mitzvot, in service to your will, a testimony to your holy name. Baruch atah Adonai, Hapores Sukkot Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Amen.
And we'll continue with Vishamru on page 44.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael olti le'olam ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai השמיים ואת הארץ. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש.
A thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat arrives in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night. Eternity utters a day. We will rise as a community for the Amidah, the Tefillah, on page 46.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avod ve'Imahot, Umevi Geula Lihivnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamolcha ba'al gevurot, Umidomelach, Melech memit, Umechayeh, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalalucha sela, baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
You may be seated. At the top of page 55, may these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. And on page 57, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam ba'ahava tekabel u'tehil ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. And we'll read together on page 59 at the top. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. We'll continue with Shalom Rav, a prayer for peace, on page 60.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol eit u'v'chol sha'a b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Hasim le'olam. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace.
We'll take a moment now for silent prayer for the words that are in your hearts.
Let's sing together. O se shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imheru.
We turn to Misha Berach on page 253. Our hearts turn to those in our congregation in need of healing of body, of mind, and of spirit. Those we love and who love us are a blessing in our lives, and we pray for their refuah shlema, their full healing. Particularly in our hearts and minds, we are thinking of Shandol Bat Frida Malka, Julie Borochoff, Margot Raz, Carol Dubin, Otto Feller, Samsara Vizkaya, Sharon Rotman, Eliyahu Ben Maxinamala, Bob Radke, Lyle Rubel, Mark Cook, Moshe Ben Nechama, Jean Bass, Alan Turner, Steve Toplinski, Myron Dvorkin, Esther Cohen, Lauren Cheris, Matt Cheris, Lisa Firstad, Terry Finch, Harav Ilana Miriam Bat Chava, Faye Levin, Sarah Rachel Bat Yocheved Alexander, Brew Precourt, Alan Elias, Tia Barrett, Wendy Salzberg, Steve Plotkin, Kathy Peltz, Avram Ben Naftali, Emma and Max, Doug Cruz, Nadiva Sarah Batliba, Sharon Rothstein, Judith Naiman, Carol Rovner, David Goldstein, Marilyn Harmon, Chris St. Martin, Ellen Futterman, Barry Bursack, Debbie Kelly, Janet Meister, Michael Messi, Ahuva Yocheved Bat Chaim Valea, Susan Sack, Reza Tzvia Bat Shena Etta, Mary Frankowitz, Sophia Rubenstein, Ilana Himmelfarb, Chris Gould, Charmaine Hayden, and Wendy Wiviet. In addition to these names, we think of those that we're holding in our hearts, and we will go ahead and sing the Misha Berach on page 253.
Mi sheberach avoteinu mekor habracha leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imoteinu mekor habracha la'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
A week after 9/11, news anchor Dan Rather appeared on David Letterman's show to talk about the tragedy and its security implications in the U.S. and abroad. At one point, while describing the firefighters at Ground Zero, Rather loses his composure, tears up, unable to speak. Then he attempts to gather himself. Letterman gently tells him to take care of himself, making space for his sadness as they break for commercial. When the show comes back, Rather's first words are an apology. He says, "First of all, David, I want to apologize. You know I'm a pro, and I get paid not to let it show, and I'm sorry about that." The Torah rarely depicts emotions. Yet in last week and this week's Torah portions, Miketz and Vayigash, Joseph weeps, the Hebrew verb livkot, multiple times. As the emotional force of this story builds, it requires greater depth of vulnerability from its main characters. Throughout the parashah, Joseph gradually becomes more at ease, publicly showing his emotions, even getting others to respond emotionally. Over the past few years, the phrase toxic masculinity has gotten people's attention. Toxic masculinity feeds off of the gender stereotypes that tell men that they can show emotion only if it is an expression of anger, which is viewed as a strong emotion, instead of sadness, which is seen as a weak emotion. As a society, slowly, we are starting to shed these gender stereotypes of the strong, silent man who should not express his emotions. We want to raise the next generation to express their feelings instead of bottling them up. That way, they do not suffer under the pressure and explode later on. We all share in this responsibility to model healthy emotional expression for our children and future generations. Particularly, we can show them that it's okay to share emotions like sadness and happiness. Sharing these emotions does not make them less of a man, it makes them more of a human. Joseph is a good biblical representation of how men can healthily and publicly cry. In the first of the Livkot weeping snapshots, we see Joseph, second in command, of Egypt, overseeing grain distribution to the starving surrounding nations while the region experiences famine. Among those in line, 10 of his brothers approach, not recognizing Joseph in the slightest. Joseph deals roughly with them, accusing them of coming to Egypt as spies. The conversation is carried out through a translator. The brothers, thinking Joseph is Egyptian, do not know that he can understand them when they cry out, upset that they had abused him and sold him into slavery all those years ago. "Oh, we are being punished on account of our brother. We saw his soul's distress when he pleaded with us, and we didn't listen." They show regret and shame for their actions all those years ago. You can hear the fear behind their words, too. Vayisov me'alehem vayevch, vayashav alehem. Joseph turns away from them and weeps and then returns to them. Biblical commentator Rashi explains that Joseph weeps when he hears his brother's remorse. In this first instance, he's not comfortable crying publicly yet, so he turns away from them. This private moment of weeping concludes with a quick recovery and return to his brothers. Here, we see a man capable of expressing emotion, alone, and in small increments. He does not give himself permission to weep for a long time or openly in front of others. However, he does allow himself a moment of sadness, grief, and perhaps anger as the memory of his brother's betrayal washes over him. His healing begins when they admit how evil their actions were. Joseph presses the release valve to let off some of the pressure of the built-up emotion, showing us, at the very least, that it's okay to cry, to express sadness. His next emotional display occurs right after he sees his full brother, Benjamin. The text is effusive. He looked up and saw Benjamin, his mother's son. Joseph hurried out, for he was so deeply stirred with tender warmth toward his brother that he wanted to weep. He went into an inner chamber, and there he wept. When he came out, he held himself in check. Joseph must have been feeling a mix of emotions at this point. He sees his baby brother, Benjamin. What a joy. Yet, Benjamin reminds Joseph of his mother, Rachel, who died in childbirth, and he probably aches at having missed out on much of Benjamin's childhood. The text paints a vivid picture of Joseph's overwhelming feelings. It appears Joseph does not know quite how to process them, as the Hebrew expresses, livkot vayevakesh. He wanted to weep. He requested permission to weep. It almost feels as though Joseph is asking and granting permission. As a man, and as a man in a position of power, do I dare let go? These feelings are so intense, and surely they need an outlet. With that, he rushes away to a private space to shed his tears. He's making progress. He allows himself to really weep in this inner sanctum. He lets the emotion wash over him. The text is clear in its depiction of Joseph's return. When he came out, he held himself in check. Joseph has not permitted himself vulnerability in public just yet. The third time Joseph weeps in front of his brothers, he cannot hold it in any longer, and so he tells them who he is, and he weeps openly, joyfully, first with Benjamin, his closest sibling, and then with all of his brothers. Joseph has transitioned from private emotional moments to showing his emotions publicly. His loud wail is heard throughout Pharaoh's palace, and his open display of joy and affection for his brothers gives them permission to weep with him, fully experiencing their own emotions. This is where the brothers begin to rebuild their family. They had cut themselves off from Joseph, causing their father and in turn themselves a massive amount of pain. Now, reunited, they can communicate about the wrong and the hurt and work to rebuild love, trust, and companionship. Joseph's comfort with expressing sorrow and joy through tears publicly gives us a biblical representation for how men can share their emotions. And this snapshot serves as a framework for how men can feel more secure each time they express their emotions. First, accepting emotions privately, then with trusted loved ones, and hopefully, ultimately, feeling comfortable to share them in public if they wish. Dan Rather seems to be on a similar journey as Joseph. There are several layers to unpack from his encounter with David Letterman. First, Rather visibly tears up. He quickly tries to recover, mustering strength to finish his sentence. Then, Letterman validates Rather's feelings on national television when everyone's watching, a week after the worst foreign attack on American soil. While the circumstances were extraordinary, this was a crucial moment supporting men's healthy and public displays of emotion. We see that progress backtrack a little bit when standard response is embarrassment and apology that he trots out. He decried his professionalism, noting that he should have remained detached, even in the face of such tragedy. This moment falls somewhere in between Joseph's inner chamber weeping and his public weeping with his brothers. Imagine Joseph in the 21st century. Within our biblical hero, gradually awakens the acceptance of emotional vulnerability. Each time he cries, it becomes a little easier. First, a few tears, uncontrollably shed and quickly diminished. Then, allowing himself to weep in private. And finally, a public display of sentiment strong enough to encourage an emotional response from his brothers. Imagine Dan Rather witnessing these exchanges. He sees Joseph, a man in a position of power, become comfortable in his own skin, expressing his emotions. He has a public role model to show him what it could look like for himself. If only that had been the case, maybe he wouldn't have felt he needed to apologize after his tears on the Letterman show. Bottling up emotions, a byproduct of toxic masculinity, doesn't do anyone any good. It harms men who learn from a young age that they can only be angry or proud in public. It keeps them from feeling all of their emotions, which affects their social and romantic relationships. And it harms women in society because the underlying issues, which are causing pain or sorrow for men, are not addressed. When we don't communicate about how our actions or words are harming us, then we can't fix the issues, and our relationships suffer as a result. Just as we build relationships on a foundation of trust, communication, and love, we build community not by holding on to our emotions, our individual thoughts and feelings, but by sharing in the good times and the tough ones. This is our challenge today. We must strive to express ourselves and help others see that public expression is healthy. We must do better for the next generation. Our biblical stories have a lot of power. The characters, like Joseph, experience the messiness of life and every so often show us how to be better versions of ourselves. We see varying degrees of acceptance of male tears in public today, and what a gift it would be if men could hold up Joseph as an example of healthy public emotional vulnerability. It's up to us to channel that strength. It may not be easy, but we have at least one example of a man who put in the work, one tear at a time, to show us the way. On this Shabbat, may we all allow ourselves to feel our emotions and walk the path of Joseph towards acceptance and encouragement of people sharing their emotions. Shabbat Shalom. We will begin to conclude our service on page 282. We will rise as a community, and it's my pleasure to call Linda Berlin and Jeff Berlin forward to be our ark openers. We'll stand together on page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, latet gedula le'yotze breshit, shelo asanu kegoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומולדים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
We will be seated. Actually, we'll stay standing. Sorry, we're going to do Kaddish shortly. In a second. There we go. Our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us. While their physical presence is no longer, we feel them with us in our hearts. Their memories shine brightly, a light that guides us. Particularly in our hearts and minds, we are commemorating the period of Shiva for these dear members of our community. Linda Goldstein, Pamela Lynn Rice, Maxine Ornstein, Debbie Pozlowski, Sandra Winnick. And for the period of Shloshim, our community think of those who have died in this month: Sherry Burson, Dr. Stanley Kenwood, Gilbert Offenhartz, Doreen Salzberg, Marcia Bubbles Schumo, Bernie Sokol, Mindy Spitz, and Frida Fritzy Suker. And our memories pulled from our minds again and again are softened by the passing of time, glowing with warmth as we mark the yahrzeit of loved ones who died at this time in years past. David Abelson, Maddie Appel, Jack L. Bell-Humer, Abraham Berkovitz, Benny Berlin, Hannah Berman, Sarah Schwartz-Cook, David Cooper, Mary Davis, Fanny Dolberg, Samuel Dolberg, Marvin Duckler, Sanford J. Ettinger, Tilly Furstad, Lynn Willens-File, Janet Fox, Don Franklin, Richard Franklin, Louis Gellin, Ruth Geller, Stanley H. Golden, Iva Golden, William Goldstein, Samuel Gorens, Seema Gorens, Morris Green, Morris Grossman, David Himmelfarb, Dorothy Hoffman, Nancy Jones, Edwin Kaiser, David Kaufman, Robert Klein, Elaine Cosberg, Mark Krasno, Norman Kruglack, Daniel Labor, Lillian Ann Lonergan, Regina Lubar Weiss, Benedict Lubell, Robert McCurdy, Richard Mesnick, Jenny Meyer, Betty Milhendler, Goldie Naiman, Jeanette Plopper, Mary Pash Poplinger, Milton Ricken, Bernard Rosen, Jean Rosenberg, Harriet Rosenthal, Albert Rumelt, Joseph Sandler, Leanne Shuminsky, Asher Siegel, Harold Sklar, Louis Stern, George Stoll, Jay Sussman, Sidney Turer, Arlene Wertheim, Lily Zitzer, and Nita Zucro. If there are names that I mispronounced or names of those loved ones that you're thinking of at this time, please feel free to say them aloud as my eyes meet yours. We'll stand as a community for the words of Kaddish Yatom on page 294. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma Divra Chirutei V'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach leolam l'olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'halal shmei d'kudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Tamiran Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Osei Shalom B'imromav Hu Yasei Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories be for blessing, and together we say,
Amen.
Amen. And just as the words of Kaddish speak of cherishing and celebrating life, we will turn our attention to the life of our congregation. It's my pleasure to call up our president, Brent Arnold, to give some announcements. You may be seated.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. It's a pretty wet night out there tonight. But I hope you all had a really nice Hanukkah and were able to spend some quality time with the ones that you love. Although I was at home sick last week and watching on YouTube, just like the 15 people that are watching here tonight, it was so great to see all the candles glowing and all the kids up here singing the Hanukkah blessings. What a wonderful service it was, and our clergy did such a great job. It really made me proud to be the president of Congregation Shalom. I also heard that the Hone Bridge celebration was quite the event. I hope all your lives are filled with the warmth of the Hanukkah flames. I'd also like to thank our Shalom membership committee for making all the personal phone calls to wish our congregants a happy Hanukkah. Your work is much appreciated. I also heard really great things about the return of our Temple for Toddlers program that was last week. Sounds like the 3 and 4-year-olds really loved the programming that Brian Abner planned, and they chased him all the way around Clearfield Hall. I also wanted to let you know of an upcoming JCC Tapestry program called For the Left Hand Film Screening and a Talkback Session. On December 15th at 6:30 p.m., filmmaker Howard Reich will speak on the film and his journey toward his concert debut. Thanks to our very own Nancy and Jim Barnett for sponsoring this program at the JCC. A friendly reminder to please fill out the Kishrei survey. Kishrei in Hebrew means connections, and we are working hard with Rabbi Pezlowski to help connect all of you together in these uncertain times. Our Social Action Committee is still partnering with Tikkun Ha'ir on a holiday gift drive where we are collecting new women's clothing and socks until December 20th. Please feel free to bring these items into the temple where the bins are located out at the entry doors. Next Tuesday, December 14th at 7 o'clock is another Dayenu planning meeting on the Jewish Community Solar Farm. We also have a meeting on Monday at 4 o'clock to look as a congregation at our plastic pollution policies. Hopefully we can make some changes on that. A reminder that Minyan is every week at 5:45 p.m. and our Shabbat study session starts tomorrow at 9 o'clock, followed by our Saturday Shabbat service at 10 a.m. Sunday school is also this Sunday at 9 o'clock. Shabbat Shalom, congregants, and please stay warm out there.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. We will continue with Kiddush, so we will stand together, we'll rise together as a community for the Kiddush, and it is on page 5, and it's my joy to call up Felice Breskin to lead us in Kiddush. Your presence here is as sweet as the wine that we will drink tonight.
Hear, hear.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Everyone, please join. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava u'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techilah lemikra kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'ratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. Yasher koach. Feliz.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We will go ahead with our concluding song, which is Adon Olam, and that can be found on page 321.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem kol Yitzir Nivra Le'ev Nasa V'chefzo kol Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Hoveh והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילו, להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, דלא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בצרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא בידו, אף כדרוכי, בעת אישן ועירה, ועם רוחי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.